The concept of hats is something that I talked to you about before we started today. You wear lawyer cap, you wear business owner cap. Those are two very, very heavy hats. Where do you draw that line to handling some cases, to handling no cases, to handling a lot of cases as a lawyer versus working on all the problems of your business?
What are most lawyers doing in their business and on the law side of the business that they have to give up in order to step into the visionary hat?
I'm talking to you lawyers out there listening to this. I'm going to ask you to do yourself a favor and know that
Welcome to another episode of the Law Firm Growth Accelerator podcast. Today we're going to talk about the concept that law firm owners who wear less hats in their business make more money and have more free time. And we're going to talk about this with none other than the one and only Ethen Ostroff. Ethen, what is this concept? Why is it so important for everyone?
Well, first off, thanks for having me, Bill. Appreciate it. It's always fun to do our popcorn podcast with each other. This will be a good subject to move into. So, for me in particular, the way we just kind of got to this being our topic is my entire foundation of the businesses that I'm a part of and started is being really focused on either working on the business or being in the business. And a lot of lawyers really get caught up with what their lawyer peers think of them as a lawyer, a practicing lawyer, that sometimes it can cause bad habits where they feel like they're being a good lawyer, but they may not be generating more money, which is what they might want, or getting more free time back to spend with their family. And I think that there's sort of like an attachment to a workaholic culture that is ingrained in handling cases. And I think it's a little bit of self-sabotage. So, both my staffing company and my firm, they're built on the foundation of give work to the best person who is at that work and don't do anything other than supervise it and make sure that it's actually getting done. So, the concept of hats is something that I talked to you about before we started today. You wear lawyer cap, you wear business owner cap. Those are two very, very heavy hats. And if you're wearing lawyer cap and business owner cap, where do you draw that line to, handling some cases, to handling no cases, to handling a lot of cases as a lawyer versus working on all the problems of your business? So, this is sort of foundational to our businesses, something that I'm passionate about. So that's kind of why I think it's an important topic to talk about.
Yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind, yesterday I had a session with a couple hundred of our clients, and I drew out, you've read the book Traction?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they, famous-ized, if that's a word I'll make up, this popularized the concept of visionary, integrator, and then head of revenue, head of operations, and head of HR and finance as like a catch-all bucket. And yesterday I kind of drew this out, and I asked everyone, how many of you are wearing all of these hats right now? How many of you are the final decision maker for revenue generation, for integrating the vision into reality across every department of the company, HR, finance, and actual what I call the chief legal officer role, which is what most people call the managing partner, right? The person actually in charge of delivering a quality legal result at scale across your organization. And almost everyone was like, yeah, I wear basically all of those hats. And what's interesting is you and I think very quickly in our evolutions in business, call it humility, call it perhaps being a little bit easier with giving things up and letting go of things, whatever it is, you and I very quickly in both of our businesses went right up to the visionary category. And we really let go very quickly. And obviously having James as a partner and attorney assistant helped you with that.
Yeah, I mean, my first hire was my business partner, James, who's the COO. And I read Traction.
Yeah.
And I said, I need to sit here. You're going to sit there. We're going to figure out who sits in the rest of these as we get this thing off the ground. But I knew I was the visionary, and I knew he was the integrator and he knew he was the integrator. And, you know, part of the hats conversation is part one, identifying who's wearing them. And then part two, if you are giving them away, does the person receiving it even know that you gave it to them? So communicating properly roles and responsibilities underneath a seat is really, you know, phase two of what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing about some people who want to give up all these hats they're wearing and throw these hats into a burning pit of fire and watch the hat burn. And, you know, I call this divorcing parts of your identity, right? So like when you have survived one way scaling a business, you start associating like your survival towards the things you did in phase one of the business. So phase one of the business, you had to basically do almost everything in the business. So what I found is you start actually forming these traits around like, I don't want to give this up because this is what got me to where I'm at right now. But that's precisely what you need to give up is the things that you used in phase one of the business. And that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I also think this dark hole of what does a true CEO do? What does a true visionary do? This dark hole is what they see in their mind around the concept of what does a CEO visionary do all day, right? Well, we do the goal setting for the organization. We set the culture for the organization. We do creative problem solving for the organization. We really bounce around a lot, right? We bounce around from the top problem in the company. We do these special projects. We deep dive. So we really have the most
call it the
open-ended
spider
role.
sense. It's hard to delegate the spider sense.
It's that X factor. It's that you can kind of sniff what part of the business needs you to dive in, and then you kind of put your blinders on and you go all in on that part of the business. But the problem is when you're wearing 15 hats, you never give yourself the flexibility to kind of dance with the business's needs because, oh, I got to go to court. I got to do all this legal briefing stuff. I don't even understand all that stuff. You know, and I think that's part of the reason.
I understand it. I know why I don't want to do it.
So talk to me about that side of it is what are most lawyers doing in their business and on the law side of the business that they have to give up in order to step into the visionary hat?
Sure. So I'm talking to you lawyers out there listening to this. I'm going to ask you to do yourself a favor and know that this isn't a black and white process. And we tend to, as lawyers, look at things in, you know, even though every case we do analysis on is in the gray area, you know, in our decision making, in delegation, sometimes we feel a knee-jerk, you know, on-off switch type feeling about giving something up. It's not on then off. If you're doing it properly, it's on, build training documentation, supervise, and become off when the person that is doing the task can become a supervisor and you get out of the seat completely. It's not, here's this stuff, go. That's totally unfair to your employee because then they don't have the support and resources and know that they can come to you when something is not working the way you would hope. So it's not on off, but delegation is intention, and it's, I want to get out of this seat. How do I get there? And mapping out getting out of a seat. And some seats might take 6 months. Some seats might take 1 month. Some seats might take a day. And if you're looking at some that are like, you know, monitoring that you're warm transferring your calls properly in Ring Central, your phone system or something like, oh, I know that I need to keep my eye on this one thing. And you could get out of it in a day. Like, those are your first wave of things to get off your plate. The things that are a month, the things that are 3 months, 6 months, like a CFO seat, like you're talking about, or, you know, a chief of people and getting out of the hiring process. These are things that are not like, all right, I need to get out of this, so I'm out of it. Here you go. It's, I need to get out of this. How do I get out of this? And how do I support my person I'm putting this hat onto to keep me out of this? Because if you just throw the hat to them, you're going to be giving that hat back, and it's going to be a disaster when you get it back.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest mistakes I've made is we have some extremely high-level people on our team now, and before I knew this, when I hired extremely high-level people to take over a critical function of the business, I basically abdicated. I didn't delegate, I abdicated. I basically said, oh, you're experienced, you've done this for X number of years, like, you know what to do, right? And what I realized is no matter how experienced someone is, I'm 33 years old. I have people on my executive team that are twice my age, right? So I realized that, if they were CEOs, in their identity, they would be CEOs right now, right? And what I realized very, very quickly, and I made a bunch of mistakes in this area, was you can never be hands off with the most mission critical parts of your business until you know it's running to the standards of the company, right? So it's our job as executives or as leaders of our company to find the right person to the seat, but also to give them enough context and guidance and guardrails to know how they can operate on their own within the parameters of the goals of the company. And that's the job of the CEO and visionary, is to create those parameters. The book, No Rules Rules, by the founder of Netflix, talks about the concept of context, not control. The best cultured companies are brilliant at creating context around what the mission critical priorities are, so much so that they don't have to control people, because they're able to paint so much context around what our core values are, how we operate as a company, like how we respond to adversity, so that when these principles are hardwired into our team, they're able to run on their own and they don't need as much micromanagement. Yeah. So, and I think you've actually done a great job dancing between this, because you are a very systems-driven entrepreneur. When you look at your companies, when you look at what you've built from a technology standpoint, you are really technology first in a lot of ways. And I believe you allow technology to lead your systems in your business, but you still have an amazing culture. So how do you seek that balance of having tight systems and happy people doing what the mission of the company requires them to do?
I think there's a few parts to it. I think people know that I won't tolerate. A line I did not read this somewhere. I'm not trying to act like I am a creative whatever, but your culture is what you tolerate.
Yeah.
And I really don't tolerate lack of compliance in our system. It's a thing that when people are interviewing, and tip for you when you're interviewing, scare them there, because then if there's something you really, really care about that you hid, that you didn't want to tell them that you really, really care about, like if you don't put things in the system the right way, you're going to get fired over it, which I'm very clear. And I'm going to say, I'm going to pick on you if I don't see things the way I want. And you're going to be called out on meetings. This is something I'm really particular about. So you have to document well. You have to use our system the way that it's designed. You have to ask questions if you don't know what you're doing. If you don't follow these things, you're not going to thrive with us. So I think that culture setting starts at the interview process. Like, hey, these are the things I really am going to have a problem with. If you do these things, you're going to be really happy here. And not being scared of anything that they could discover, because if they knew about it, then they're like, oh yeah, I knew about it. They're not feeling like bait and switch. So, I think that culture setting and the creating of the things you are really prioritizing starts right when you interview that person. And when they join, then when you enforce those things, they're not like turned off by that. And then for me, we're in a really big virtual culture now. I find that kindness in group setting chats is something, and positivity in group setting chats is infectious. Like if you're sitting at home working in Atlanta or working in, Wyoming or Seattle, where some of our people are sitting and working, and their only interaction with their coworkers is, well, when something was tough, this person complained about clients. Or when something was tough, they said, how can we figure it out? There's so much less interaction face to face that something I really prioritize is positivity in group settings on chats. And that is something I have fired people over, where, client blaming and not being positive, not being problem solving based, throwing your hands up. If I see that energy in a chat, I will immediately start going and talking to that person about that. And if I don't see improvement on that, or if I see repeated things, or if I see a level of like shock or defensiveness over like, well, I find it offensive because yada, yada, yada. Like, no, like if you're not helping build us up, you're breaking us down. And as you become more of a leader, people listen to you more and look to you more in those harder times. And if you're not the positive light, you're going to create a lot of problems. So these little things here, interviewing and being overly transparent about the things you will fire them over, and setting the culture in your digital setting and your physical setting has kept our retention rate really high. We really don't lose people in our infrastructure, and we're really proud of that.
You don't lose people that you don't want
That's
to
right.
lose, right?
That's correct.
So that's the concept that I wanted to, that you made me think of as you were talking, is we've parted ways with, I look at our HR system, somewhere around like, we've parted ways with like 100 people in like the last 2 years or like 3 years or something in our employee database. And I went through the list of people, and I realized, because oftentimes we think to ourselves, like, we want a really high employee retention rate, right? And it's funny, there's some big law firm owners who I won't name, who I've interviewed on my show a long time ago, and they would brag, oh, I've had a receptionist work for my firm for 30 years. You know, we're family, right? And I think to myself, I wonder if this person who worked for you for 30 years, it has, overperformed their KPIs every single year for 30 years in a row, and one-upped themselves every year and improved every year for those 30 years? Or are they just getting paid just enough to not quit, and you put up with their complaining and their negativity, but they didn't quit? So
they're the mother hen.
Pat myself.
I talked about the concept of the mother hen at a conference recently. That's what you're talking about.
So, I mean, I want to brag about right employee retention rate.
Yeah.
That my A players, and that the people who are absolute studs and studettes, I don't know what the woman equivalent of that is, that they grow within the company, and that we don't lose them, right? But this is something I respect so much about you, and you've always had this ability to make the tough decisions on both a technical skill set perspective and a core value perspective. And I've never seen you get trapped in one or the other. For example, I know, and I'm not going to name any names, but like, there have been multiple times where you have let go of a top performer in your company because they didn't meet your core values, right? You've also done the opposite. You've let go of nice people that, that just weren't that were a core value fit, but just weren't technically inclined enough for you. And I think that objectivity,
both of those in my mind right now.
Yeah. So
the second one is so much harder.
Oh yeah.
It is infinitely harder.
You're saying the nice person,
that's
not technically there,
that is trying their best and can't do it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the one I lose sleep over.
Yeah.
Core
value is easy.
Its core value is easy.
Yeah.
Because you got something. I mean, I'm looking at yours right behind me.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have something that you can look to and you can say, blaming a client every time something goes wrong is not relentless accountability. Mm-hmm. Ipso facto, we've got an issue here.
Yeah.
I don't lose sleep about that.
Yeah. And you coached me on this before. I remember there was a time I called you. We were going through a string of challenges in the company, and you're just like, you basically told me, and I don't even know if you remember this, but you told me, you were just like, dude, bottom line, you're not putting your foot down for your core values. And I think we were talking about one of our core values, and you're just like, yeah, dude, it sounds like it's kind of become bullshit to you. Like, it's just like a euphemism. I was like, yeah, dude, you're 100% right. Like, how can I preach these core values and then tolerate behavior that goes completely against them?
I have this theory about this. So when people come into your organization, I think they come in through an interview process that you pretty much are guessing through. You try your best, you get data, you try to make it as accurate as, but hiring, for the most part, Gary Vee says, hiring is guessing, firing is knowing. And you can try your best, you can go for references, but still sometimes it just doesn't mesh. So when they come in from a core value perspective, everyone is between, and I'm not trying to overgeneralize, but primarily the 90% are between a B plus and A minus right when they come in. and the B pluses become A's, and the A minuses become C's from what they see that the leadership is tolerating. If they see that the leadership is okay with missing very important KPIs or letting bad data go into your system or, just being negative, then that's where it slides to.
Yeah.
I think there's a fallacy of I got to go out and find an A player. It's so rare for someone to come in and really in 30 days, you're like, wow, what would we do without this person in 30 days? And it really is day 45 I've seen is when you're like, wow, this person's got potential to run this department or run that. I've seen blah, blah, blah get done that I didn't even think was possible that they'd get done. And you're not going to know it in the first week. You're not going to know it in the first month. You're going to know it at day 45. Wow, this person has potential to be killer. But then there might be that person that by day 90, you're starting to see that. And they were kind of just lurking and they got in a seat that, maybe they weren't your favorite candidate. Your favorite candidate went to another firm. So they're coming in and you've already got a little bit of a bias against them.
Yep.
And, it takes them a little longer to, they started as a B plus in the first 90 days. But you can't give up on a B plus.
Yeah.
A B plus can easily become an A player.
Yeah.
And it's just what moves them from B plus to A is the same thing that moves an A minus to a C. And the drop from A minus to C is so much harder than B plus to A. Because they just go from pretty good to terrible.
Yeah, it's tough. And I want to bring us back to the wearing less hats concept. And I think this kind of dovetails on what we're talking about. And, if you're going to tolerate mediocre performance in any organization, then it is going to be hard for the owner of the business to give things up, right? Because if everyone's mediocre performance, then of course you're going to feel anxious about giving things up to people who are performing mediocre, right? That's where this impulse of micromanagement creeps in, where you start tolerating, I guess mediocrity is the norm, so therefore I'll always have to have personal oversight over intake. I'll always have to have personal oversight over this part of the business. I'll never be able to give up my casework, right? But the real root cause of this is tolerating mediocrity. And once you hire your first triple A plus player, if you have any intuition in your blood as an entrepreneur at all, you will run, not just walk away or tiptoe away from the function of your business where this person's in. You will run away from it when you have a triple A plus player. You'll be like, okay, wait, keep doing what you're doing. Do it exactly how you did it and go. Now do it 2 times faster, right? But most people have never actually worked with a triple A plus player. And I think another big concept that I've been tussling with in my mind is, as a company grows, you want more and more specialization of labor, right? Which is the number one gift that the Industrial Revolution gave us, was specialization and division of labor. So I'll give you a quick example on this, and this just goes to show the humility of Andy, my partner, Andy Stickle. We're going through a whole org chart redesign across our whole company right now. And I don't even think I told you this because it was only a few days ago, and Andy's on vacation this week. So we're practicing what we preach, okay? We're going through our org chart and we're asking ourselves, who's wearing what hat? Is that actually happening, right? We found some people on our org chart who are doing X, Y, and Z, but that's not in their job title.
You're doing the forever task map.
Right. So that we look at Andy's job role, right? I'm like, dude, you're spending all this time managing individuals on your team. You're spending all this time doing day-to-day management of people. And when you and I partnered, you told me that was the number one thing you hated, was managing people. You just wanted to be able to do creative projects all the time. And I was like, well, here's the truth, Andy. And he said this too, we're going to have double or triple the size of the marketing team. That means it's going to be double or triple the size of people management. So I asked him, I was like, do you feel like that's what you want to do, is manage triple the people? And he was like, hell no, dude. That's what I hate more than anything. And I was like, what do you love doing? Right? He was like, innovation. I love coming up with new ideas across all parts of the business that can innovate our path forward. And we started going through examples of big innovations he came up with, like our AI avatar process and like all these other things. And we realized that Andy doesn't want to be a chief marketing officer. He wants to be a chief innovation officer. So we went through the interview process and we hired a CMO literally this week. And Andy is changing his job title, and he's going to be focused on one thing: innovation across all parts of the company. He's no longer going to manage anybody. And he's going to be able.
Sounds pretty nice.
That's the freaking dream job, right? Now, for me, I actually do like managing people and the role of CEO, and we talked about my role as well. And I do enjoy what I'm doing. And what I think is really interesting is and we can learn a lot from this example with Andy, is like Andy had no ego about it. And he was just like, yeah, dude, I don't like doing this stuff. And there's this shamelessness, this transparency.
Especially when it comes to the lawyer hat. If we're talking to lawyers here, the lawyer hat is the one we're very shameful to take parts of or all of it off.
Yeah.
It will never be 100% off your head, or you're going to run a heartless business, in my opinion. It has to be 5, 10, something percent minimum, always on. But taking it from 90 to 10, there is a lot of shame people feel with that.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll challenge the people listening to this. How can you make that 5 to 10% broad brush lawyer cap work that you're doing add exponential value to those cases and to the value of your inventory you have if you do contingency fee work, or on the criminal side, how can you create more for someone else and not use your own time? So, that lawyer hat in particular, for the people listening, is the hardest to shed because they feel such shame about it.
So my question to you is, I think you just nailed it. And that is it right there, because there's identity wrapped up in that.
Yeah, they went to law school. They passed the bar.
Like, there's a barrier to entry.
Their uncle was a lawyer and went to court 60 hours a week,
So how do you go, like, give me a tactical example of someone who spends 90% of their time thinking, acting, working in that legal bucket 90% of their time, and then what does life look like when they're spending 5 to 10% of their focus on that, and how do they create that disproportionate impact?
So I can talk about myself on how exactly I do that.
Yep.
So I am an attorney, a Pennsylvania lawyer, and I'm waving into Arizona right now. So I will be an actual attorney, a practicing lawyer in 2 states. My practice of law, try to define the practice of law. It can be however you perceive it. There's contract lawyers, there's pre-litigation lawyers, there's trial lawyers, there's, people that work at white collar law, there's criminal defense lawyers. The practice of law is broad. So let's just agree the practice of law is broad. The way that I interpret my practice for the sort of insecure part of myself, am I still practicing as a lawyer? Am I doing enough as a lawyer? I try to make my time spent on our inventory of cases and our creation of new cases as impactful as I possibly can when I'm spending that time doing it. So my practice of law, for me, I like to have a pulse of every single lead that comes through our inventory. I like that. That helps me sleep at night. That's one of those things that I don't necessarily think no one's checking on it. But to me, if I see my leads coming through and I flip through an email, for me, that is my making sure things are being addressed. And if something comes in that's catastrophic, I go double check they got a call within a certain period. Could I give that to someone else? Yes. But to me, my practice of law is at scale. And the more people I'm touching, the more people I'm helping. And to me, I am doing my broad brush of this is what we need to do with this case. And then I'm going to back off for a while. And I'm going to let my intake team chase it. I may check on our list of all intakes maybe a couple times a week. I'll just look through and see, all right, where are we by status on our intakes? What's our pipeline looking like? Because that then can help me project cash in our business in 13 months. If they are a comp lead today, it takes me 20 days to sign them. That means I can see if we generate this many leads that turn into this many cases. I can see that I'm going to generate this much money in next March. So for me, this helps me sleep at night running a business. I can project out our business. And I'm also impacting our leads when they first come in the door. Then when the case is open, let's say it's a case we want to take, I'm involved in what I call our big case committee, which is any personal injury case that has a potential settlement of $25,000 or more. I'm a part of the negotiations right now until I'm not. When we bring on a lawyer that, or one of our current lawyers removes me from that seat, great. But right now, I'm our best negotiator. I'm confident in that. And that impacts our average value of each case, which impacts our bottom line, which for me is a big thing of me practicing law. So for me, it's seeing our lead pipeline come through. That's something I still partially keep. It's touching on our biggest cases on the negotiation side. Then we have a case that we think is going to go to trial out in Pittsburgh in about a year. And I'm going to open and close, and I'm going to take our biggest witnesses, because that adds value to all the rest of the cases. Because if they know I'll show up and I do well when I show up, then every other case is worth 20, 30% more because adjusters know that about you. They know the firms that show up to trial versus the ones that don't. So for me, the way I can impact my whole firm is on the marketing side, the intake side, the negotiation side, and handling a few cases as first chair at trial if necessary.
Yeah, and that's simplicity. You have 4 buckets there. That is, and you're not getting involved in, thousands and thousands.
I don't
of
do
cases.
the injury check-ins. I don't get medical records. I don't negotiate liens.
You're also not
I
responsible
don't write
for
demands.
updating clients.
No. I have a team that's really good at it. And for me, checking in with our clients is something I also keep an eye on.
So another example of your product strategy, like if you compare law firm to a SaaS business, which is very fascinating, that almost no service businesses have a chief product officer, right? An innovator of the actual service itself and how we're going to improve the service. Well, in a service business, there's 2 prongs of service. There's client experience, and then there's the actual quality of the legal work produced. You can do the best quality legal work in the world, but not update your clients, not communicate with them, not set good expectations, and you're gonna have a bunch of unhappy clients, right?
Yeah.
So you have to both of these. And from a macro perspective, when you're wearing that 5 to 10% product hat, we'll call it, or lawyer hat,
I mean, I think mine is a little more than that, but it's not that much more than that.
and you look at things from a big picture perspective. For example, instead of diving into any one complaint, you look for trends around complaints.
Correct.
That little shift. Hey, we've had one person complain about not being updated during the 30-day point of their case.
Is that a symptom of something bigger, or is it just an outlier?
So
Usually
then-
I assume it's a symptom.
Right. So then what I've disciplined myself to do is I try to not dive in on incomplete data, because I've wasted more time diving in on incomplete data, whereas I would have been so much more productive if I just pump the brakes for a second and get a bigger picture of the data and say, we have thousands and thousands of clients, however many you have, and only one person complained about not being updated in 30 days. That's a win. That's not something I need to go drop everything and go solve our 30-day check-in strategy as a company, right? But
you talk to that case manager, the person responsible, hey, I saw this, it's 3 days late, these things are important, here's why.
And I think just directing the overall strategy is what misses from most lawyers trying to become the owners, realizing you are controlling things from a distance. Like if I ran a chain of McDonald's as an example, and I get 1,000 reports from people that our burgers are getting overcooked, right? Or something like that, then I'm going to drill into our burger cooking policy. I'm going to meet with the person in charge of burger cooking policy. I'm going to say, hey, why are we leaving the burgers on this long? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? Let's change this process. Boom. Then I'm going to step away and I'm going to monitor 30, 60, 90 days later and see our complaint count go down, right? That's the difference of CEO level management versus doing it. And it's so much, I don't want to say it's less work, because there's always something to fill your time. It's just a different leverage level of work. You're leveraging when you focus on the CEO category, 1 minute of your time is producing the outcome for thousands or hundreds of clients or people, right, that buy your service, right? Instead of, I'm going to solve this one fire. And that's what I think is like where ego gets wrapped in, is like, if your name is on the name of your law firm, like, of course you're going to feel a little bit, you're going to take it a little personal when someone complains. But you got to almost segment that and say, yeah, the name of my firm has my last name in it. Okay, that's great. But this is an enterprise that just happens to have my last name on it, okay? And just because one person is upset doesn't mean I'm a failure, I'm a fraud, everything I've done. No, it just means your business system that happens to have your last name in it didn't produce an ideal outcome.
I mean, if we're talking Google reviews for a second, 4.9 is the perfect Google review. 4.9 is more believable than 5.0. If you have 5.0, people actually think you're cheating and getting fake reviews. So, my firm, we're very proud of our 4.9. We also are dealing with people who are going through something they're very upset about. We're dealing with people in emotion mind, not wise mind when we're talking to them. And if we sign up 10 people and one of those people, we turn down their case later due to something that had nothing to do with the quality of our work and they give us a 1-star review, I am okay with accepting that. Mm-hmm. The process isn't broken if it's a 4.9 in some categories. I think in some circumstances, if you notice something, there's a balance of like, how far should I drill down deeper into this thing? And, it can't be like one way or the other. For me, it makes me feel better to get an answer. Like my team sometimes over the last few years, they'll be like, oh, well, we didn't want to bother you with this thing. And for me, I want them to copy me so I can see problem solving occurring. Yeah. Because if I see crickets I'm like, something's broken and people are scared right now. Yeah. And that's when my spider senses go up, is when people are quieter, actually. Yeah. And then I'm going and poking around. I'm like, wow, this whole thing we've been doing wrong. And then it's like, oh yeah. And then someone else brings up a problem and that starts the problem solving. Yeah.
And I think one of the pet peeves, I was doing an interview with someone last week and this is super high level, multi 6-figure role that we're considering bringing into our company. Decades of experience, extremely impressive individual. And one of their most important questions to me were, what are my pet peeves, right? Because if they're going to be reporting to me, they want to know what are my pet peeves. And the only thing I could really say, because I'm a pretty not pet peeve kind of person, but I have one of them, and I realized it's I told you so itis, right? Where somebody gently on the side of their voice one day in one meeting said, we really should rethink this. We really should think about doing this a different way, right? And then in their mind, let's say they did bring that up once in a non-coherent, non-complete communication style. They bring up this little thing they thought should be improved, and then boom, 30, 60, 90 days later, the thing they said we should have done, right? We actually should have done it, and they're like, oh, I already said that. I already brought it up before, like we needed to do that. So I don't think it's enough to just have people spotlight problems in your company like gently and like they're almost complaining about it or saying like we really need to think about. This is why I think.
How does it get tracked?
Yeah. How does it get tracked?
How does it get on a to done? How are we going to take time to discuss this thing?
And if it's so damn important, then you need to up level your communication skills and make the organization aware of it. You can't just hum behind the surface, say, oh, I brought it up that one day 3 months ago and the company didn't listen to me and they didn't change based on what I said. Well, that's because you didn't say it in a way that stopped the organization and listened to you. So it's a two-way street. We can't just be hypnotists and know exactly the level of importance of everything in the company. So one thing I've been trying to urge my team to do is really speak up when you see something. Really make it a coherent communication path. Make it a formal brief. Send it to as many executives on the team as possible. If it's truly this big of an opportunity, you're letting the company down by not making us aware of it.
I think there's opportunities and there's problems. So those two things. So we started to identify this, and the basic thing we did, because we're dealing with a few entities, and there's a couple layers of just problem spotting, is we just created a problem spotting and solving form, and just simplified it. Said, you got a problem, you just post it here. It could be tech, it could be marketing, it could be this, it could be in your department. You could have seen it from someone else. It can be anonymous. It cannot be anonymous. You ask your team what they prefer, and you make it unbelievably accessible and pinned and simple. And then it goes onto a Jira board or goes onto a Trello board as a ticket to be triaged by somebody that can look at that and be like, oh shit, this whole department is screwed up because our Zapier account has been off for 3 days and we haven't been delivering leads, like code red. And then you can do like code red, medium, green. And we've been refining this. But like everyone on our team knows how to report different kinds of issues from just a general bucket of, you got a problem, just post it here. And then it goes on to verifiably, they can, it'll go onto a project management board and then be triaged to the appropriate department. So that's systematized that just problem spotting and solving problem. And a rule that I have is when you bring a problem, you have to at least try to bring a solution. It may be completely utilized. It might be the perfect solution. And it has to be a humble solution. It has to be one that you're willing for feedback on. We may be, you might be reporting a problem that we sort of knew about, and there was a, solution we sort of knew about that was legacy before you got here, and here's why we did it that way. It might just be a miscommunication problem. Or I don't know where to put this piece of information. It might be a training problem. So it's just bucket problems is what we did, and we saw good results from that.
That's brilliant. I'm going to roll that out like today.
Problems and opportunities. Like if there's a way you can blend it into one form, great. If it has to be two separate forms, that's fine too. But it has to go somewhere, and there has to be someone on your team that raises their hand and says, I'm the problem solver triager. And they need to sit in that seat. It's a made up seat that we came up with, but like it's a seat. I'm thinking in your organization, I think of like problem solvers. I think of Jen. I think of Stephanie. I think of Brandon. Like, who is the person they're like, oh yeah, they're going to make sure this goes to the right person. So it's got to be someone with some institutional knowledge, but like it's mission critical. Even if it's a small little tech thing, they just push it to tech, and then it goes to the tech team, and then HubSpot's fixed, and that's not a problem anymore. But this is something we're constantly tweaking because there's a lot going on, and a tech department has a lot going on. Your marketing department has a lot going on. Your coaching department does. And if they're in HubSpot and they see something that they have to save twice to do once, it's annoying, and that costs you money at scale.
And I think that's another great CEO decision example. Like, you could have just realized that your organization didn't have a way to clearly identify and solve problems, and then just moved on and never solved it. But that's another example of what CEOs do, is they create macro organizational change through one or two strategies, right? And so you took this concept of problem solution and you systemized it, right? And that's one of your gifts, is systemizing what seems on the surface hard to systemize. So what, in your CEO hat, and I can share mine as well, like what are your 3 roles and responsibilities in terms of the hats you currently wear? Like, what are you actually wearing as hats in your organization right now?
I know you hate this concept, but it does feel like it sometimes. Like it's like my spider sense is something I can't delegate. I would like to delegate it. I would like to not be the one to catch things that seem on the surface sometimes. I would like that, and I constantly try to push towards that. But like sometimes like very like spider sense oriented things are like they just come to me in certain circumstances. Like the other day in Intake 360, like, there were some very basic testing things that I don't blame anyone for, because they're down and drilling in and fixing things. And I come in and make one, and everyone's like rolling their eyes like, oh really? Like, just call the number and we'll just, like we didn't do that. We called a number and it didn't go right. And I'm just like, couldn't have just called the number just to test the number, you know? It's like some things that are right there, and I'm not trying to make my team feel bad. They're crushing it, and we've gotten Intake 360 to a much better place over this last week. But like, I describe hat one is like, all right, where is the fire no one's talking about? Spider sense. And like, I can feel the energy of where it's coming from. I don't know how to describe it. It's like something from the ethos. I don't know how to describe it. But like, when you run the business and you have worn every hat, you know how things intertwine in a way that you can't explain.
Yep.
And you know when one thing's broken, the consequence of the next thing. And you can see symptoms of what could create those things.
Yep.
So I'll notice a symptom. I'll raise it. I'll be like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
Like, here's, I think, where we go. Take it and go. I'm going to check back in with you in a day.
Yeah.
So it's like spider sense problem solving in like the ethos. I don't know how much better to describe it than that. So that's one.
Yeah.
Two is, at the end of the day, like, I set the culture. You know, what do we stand for? Why are we doing what we're doing? Where are we going? You know, I set that culture. And I fire people over it. So like, hard decisions are under that.
Yep.
Like, setting the culture for me is like, sort of like, you know, you got a nice little bonsai tree and like you see a branch that's off, like you're cutting that branch and you're making sure it's tight, basically. And then like, I'd say just, I think decision making is number 3. Just like being the decisive one and saying, I'm okay being wrong. I'm okay if I'm publicly humiliated and wrong about this. I'll put my name on it and take blame for it. So like, being the decision maker, the spider sense, and the culture pruner, I think is the job.
Yeah, I think for me, I've condensed it to 3. Vision setting, strategic thinking, and impactful communication. And those are more alignments with my personality type and traits. So vision setting is where are we going? That also ties to culture. That applies to how we're going to get there. That applies to deadlines around things, product expansion, stuff like that. So vision setting. Strategic thinking is taking a complex data set or a complex array of problems or a list of potential opportunities and sifting through it to come up with a strategy on how we're going to reach the vision, right? So I look at strategy as allocation of resources, which is time, people, and money, right? So strategy is what directs the usage of time, people, and money, right? So that's my second role, is strategic thinking. Now, one of my mentors once told me there's no such thing as strategic planning. There's strategic thinking and then project planning. I am not good at project planning. I'm good at strategic thinking, which is the first part of the strategic planning kind of misnomer in some ways. So strategic thinking and then impactful communication. So if something is going to have a massive impact on the organization, whether that's through our marketing, whether that's through a training to our whole sales team, whether that's to a product launch that we need to announce internally, that's a Bill thing, right? And if I stay in those 3 lanes, I'm happy. I don't feel like I worked that week. I feel like, oh, this is like fun. And I think within that, you know, those being my 3 buckets, obviously those aren't roles and responsibilities. Those are kind of default like action buckets I kind of drift into. Within that, you have, I like what you said, like the spidey sense thing, which I would kind of put into strategic thinking for me, because the way I come up with strategy is through skip level meetings, right? So like I found this out that like I need to interact to learn. Like I'm an interactive learner. The best way for me to come up with a video script, I've learned, is to come up with a really shitty video script and just go film it a few times, and then after I film it, I'm like, shit, I didn't like this, all right, 3rd time's a charm. So I actually learned by practicing in real life and getting involved in real issues. Then through the activity of getting involved in real issues, I'm like, oh, this is what we need to do. And that's what I kind of call like the fluidity gene, right? Where can you enter your week with like nothing in your calendar? Like,
Are you asking me?
Yeah. With next to nothing, with 80% of your calendar empty.
I could.
Yeah. And how would you feel about that?
I'd be happy about it.
Yeah. Why?
It'd be great because I could then turn my spider sense up.
You would bank on your intuition. You wouldn't have any insecurity about it because you trust your intuition.
Yeah, I would know. I use gaps to dig, and like I love digging.
Yeah.
I love problem solving. Like what? I don't know. My stepmom asked me like, so like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just solve shit. Like,
Yeah.
and like the gap means I'm not tied up doing something, so I can go solve deeper into something or
Yep.
go figure out what that next landmine is.
Yeah. And that's what I the most unhappy I was in running SMB team. And I didn't know this in the moment because you can will your way out of anything, especially when your survival depends on it. You could lie yourself into accepting any reality if your survival depends on it. In the beginning, 3-4 years of SMB team, I really wasn't happy. I was productive. I was getting a lot of shit done, but like at the end of every day, I just felt so drained. And I looked at my calendar, and this is where the biggest insight came for me is like, I looked at my calendar and it was filled during that time period. I mean, back to back, everything, just this like productivity porn that I wanted to feel every week, and back to back to back, and like no second between anything. And then at that 4 or 5 year mark, I was like, all right, I'm going to follow a completely different approach. I'm just going to have nothing in my calendar, and I'm just going to have my executive meeting, couple one-on-ones every now and then, reduce the frequency of one-on-ones, and just dance around and dance within the business. And this is the most like perpetual energy I think I've felt because I'm operating within my kind of creative flow, you know? And I just wish attorneys could just feel 1 week of having nothing in your calendar and trusting your intuition and that spidey sense. Because I feel like most entrepreneurs would actually do pretty good if they fully tapped into their spidey sense. But I don't think you get to the level of confidence that you've gotten to with your spidey sense until you've had some successes along the way tapping into that spidey sense.
I think it has been less the successes, it's been more how I've navigated huge, massive issues through the same energy because I had the mental capacity to be able to transition my focus on something explosively big that I needed to deal with. You know, that gives me the confidence that like, all right, I've dealt with like way harder stuff than this right now. Like, this is just another thing. So, and like, I like discovering the things that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Like where people are burying their head in the sand in my organization, I'm going to find. Like, that's what I want to do in that gap.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, great talk.
I thought that was a really good topic. And I hope you got value from this. Definitely the motto of the day is if you can wear less hats, you can make more money and you can have more free time. So, you know, start the process of simplifying what you're going to spend your time on, and create your not to-do list. You know, I always say
and your pet peeves and what you don't want to be doing. Do what you like, you're good at, and can make you money.
Yep.
And if you can find that combo, you're going to want to get out of bed every day. There's a lot of lawyers that don't want to get out of bed every day. I felt that at different points. I don't feel it now. So,
So on that note, we'll see you in the next episode. Stay great.